Hello and welcome to 4,000 and Counting, brought to you by Hurricane E-Bites. I'm Watty, this is Mark, and you goalie nerds, you're going to love this one. We have former Cardiff Devils man Mac Carruth, very successful time in the Elite League. Been playing in Denmark last year, and we're lucky enough to have him join us today. Mac, thanks for joining the show, buddy.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
I said it off the top there, like the goalie nerds are going to love this one. Did you always want to get between the pipes, or did you start as a player? How did it work for you?
Yeah, so my dad was a goalie, and he kind of, I don't know, I think I'll be the same way with my kids eventually, is made me skate out, and then, by 6 or 7, kind of do both. Because you always want to be a good skater as a goalie, especially in the modern game. So he made me do both. I played with my age group as a player until I was 10, and then played up a level as a goaltender, just by chance in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I played up. There wasn't much talent, I would say.
Not much competition for places, eh?
Yeah, no, I mean there was, but nothing like Minnesota or anywhere else in North America. So I was lucky enough, and he kind of ran the rink, and all my buddies were a bit older too, so it worked out. I'm pretty sure I split time. I wasn't just the main guy, but at 10 years old, just happy to be with the older guys, I think. And parents made a decision that I was decent enough to try and move forward in my career, and I couldn't really do it in Wyoming, unfortunately, with the amount of talent out there, just surrounding areas, and then their travel budget must have been absolutely crazy. I think the closest team was 4 hours for tournaments and stuff, driving in snowstorms and blizzards.
People are kicking off if they have to do that to go for a fucking the best of the UK tournament. 4 hours?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? It's like you got to travel to play these guys. I was like, think yourself lucky not in North America. The closest town is fucking 2 hours over.
Yeah, I was listening to Tansey's podcast, and he mentioned something like that. 9 hours isn't really a big thing in North America, where in Europe they're not a chance, not doing it. But so yeah, they decided to move the whole family to Minnesota, more or less for me to get a better opportunity in sports.
So were your parents, did they have to transfer their jobs, or did they get new jobs when they moved to Minnesota? How did it work?
Yeah, so I went there with my dad in the summer just to kind of see where we were at as far as the talent level goes, because we had never really left the West, where Wyoming's located, right outside Yellowstone, and just to kind of see if it was going to work or not. And luckily my grandparents lived there, so we had a place to stay while we were there for the month or whatever, and just kind of went to a tryout, went to a couple of summer programs, and the coaches and the board members were like, yep, no problem, you guys move here, no problem, he'll be on the top team.
Is this at this point, is this bantam level or U16, or is this
squirt?
Oh,
squirt,
so it's
second year squirt. Yeah, I was really young. Maybe we call it peewees. I don't know if you're allowed to call that anymore, but
oh yeah, because they changed it all.
Basically, yeah, they changed it all.
U13, U14, right?
Yeah, U14. Yeah, probably a little more PG, but back then that's what they called it, and it was okay. But
yeah, before everyone started fucking losing their minds about everything.
Yeah, cancel culture here, but so I did that, and was lucky enough, like I said, where people saw me and saw that I had a little bit of talent, and I would always worked hard, so there was no issues there. So my family moved over slowly. My sister kind of got chucked in there. She's 3 years younger than me, but she made a good track career out of her time in Minnesota, so she went to college for that. And then from
those
there,
guys are fit, eh?
Yeah,
those guys and girls that do track, woo, their fitness is through the roof.
Yeah, that's my dad was saying. If any of these model agencies want to get models for free, they should just show up to the national championships and take the third place people that aren't moving on to go pro, and they're all super fit, right? But yeah, moved away from home at 14 to go play midget AAA in Chicago. That was a bit of a shock, showing up day one to school, not knowing a soul, and not being a hockey school too. So it's just a public school just outside Chicago. It was pretty rough. So I learned to defend myself pretty quick. And
was you a big kid at this point? Because I mean, you're 6'2" now. Were you a late grower, or were you already?
I was a rail. I was just
really, yeah,
just skin and bone, and I think maybe 5'5", and then I want to say I grew over one summer like 6 inches and just like one leg bigger than the other, just zero athletic ability. And all of a sudden, just
Skating around
panicking.
the crease in
Yeah,
circles, eh?
the fastest kid on the playground one year, and then just the slowest, most awkward, dorky kid the next. But luckily that kind of filled out a little bit. I think just recently I kind of started to fill out a little bit, but
A lot of people don't realize that. Obviously, my day job is a personal trainer. Like, I'm in that industry.
yeah,
Man, like when you old man strength's a fucking real thing. When someone
yeah,
I remember being like 18, sitting in a locker room, guys are 33, 34, they'd be like, what, you wait until you get your old man strength? I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you get to 30 and you get old man strength. Man, like I see these kids in the gym now. It's real. Like I have muscle density, maturity, and stuff that I didn't have at 24, 25.
yeah. It's 100% muscle density. You can look like a bag of milk at 30, and then some jack kid comes in at 23, and you're still putting up way more weight. Maybe not a bag of milk, but you're, an
I know what you mean.
athlete. Yeah. But yeah, so finally starting to fill out a little bit. Maybe take a little more net would be nice too. So,
Well, you guys,
um,
you fuckers have got big enough kit nowadays. Give it a rest. You don't need to
yeah,
be
I
getting
know.
jacked. Don't need to be getting jacked as well. The shooters are gonna have nothing left to shoot at.
Yeah, especially in Europe too.
You,
Yeah,
tell,
no,
you can tell I'm a forward and you're a goalie, right? You want to like get bigger jacks, more kit. I want you less kit,
you guys are
less
getting you
jacks,
guys are
more.
getting the better sticks now, though. 350-pound sticks.
Does that not make you okay? Let's take this. I know that's like a jokey throwaway thing, but let's actually touch
It's
on that
wild.
because it's something that there's a lot of parents right now. We have a lot of parents that listen to this podcast, watch along on YouTube and stuff like that. How are these kids supposed to have an entry level into the sport, especially in a smaller demographic such as ourselves, where the sport isn't massively funded, it's not massively funded by lottery or UK sport. I think the last couple of years since Clifton and those guys have been involved, some money started to come this way, but none of the kids are seeing that. And as you say, I think one of the parents put a post up the other day and they were walking through the hockey shop. And like £250 was the cheapest stick. So for you North Americans that are listening, you're looking at like $375, $400 depending on the exchange rate. That's fucking wild for an ice hockey stick.
Yeah, it
And
was
by the
insane.
time,
Like
let's say you're
even
what, 16 and 6'3" and 90 kilos, you're going to use 8 to 10 of them in a season. That's like fucking 4-bag stick budget before you chuck £1,000 on skates
yeah,
and then your fees and everything else.
yeah.
Insane.
You don't even want to talk about goalies.
Oh,
I mean, for you guys, like,
I dropped my skates off to get done here in Calgary and just today, and we just went through. My wife is pregnant, and we were just kind of talking like, oh, what if
awesome.
we're having a daughter? So like,
Congratulations.
if our daughter, thank you very
congratulations.
much. What if our daughter wants to play goalie? I'm like, not
No,
fucking
no,
no way. Here, let's
absolutely
just
not.
go through what it costs a team for me to be outfitted in gear. So I'm going through like 2,000 for pads. Like we're going like low end, like 1,000 for like glove and blocker type situation on the low end. Usually
More
pros
than
get a
that.
better deal. And then double that. We're looking at 12 to 16 grand depending on what product you're picking. Not
Jeez.
including what you're paying me for salary, but just to have me play goal safely, 12 grand.
If that's your kids as well, man, you're cheaper sending them to
Yeah.
fucking private school. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get an education. Maybe don't get hit in the face with ice hockey pucks.
Yeah.
We'll pay
And
towards
then kids
that.
are growing too, right? And
Well,
you
so I had a young
yeah.
lad, goalie, friend, kind of like family friend, and I swear to God, every 3 weeks, his mum's on Facebook selling a pair of goalie skates. Has anybody got an 8? Fucking 4 weeks later, it's like selling these fucking skates now. Has anybody got a 9? This kid's grown like 4 skate sizes and 4 inches on the leg in 6 months.
Yeah.
But it's not all at once, so it might be like an inch and a half and a foot size. So you get new gear, and then 3 weeks later, it's another inch and a half and thousands and thousands of pounds. There needs to be, by the way, there needs to be some sort of market for that sort of thing, as opposed to mums going on Facebook and trying to sell that. Like,
Yeah, like here we have a decent, like North America and Canada, I think have a decent setup. Like the Played Against Sports is in America. I'm not sure what they
Yeah.
have here in Canada. My wife's from me, I'm not from here. So Played Against Sports, and then I think my dad's rink does like U like 5 through U10. Like they have a bunch of gear in the back that they just buzz through every year, like
Recycle
renting out to
everyone, yeah.
people. So at least you're going through, like if you want used stuff, you can use it till you're 10. And then if your kid still wants to play, then you might have to make a decision. But to get through the first 5 years of a youth program without spending thousands of dollars, I think is pretty big for parents, especially parents with multiple children.
Well, I know your parents probably the same. Mine the same. I go back now and I go in a shed in the garden and there's fucking ice hockey kit in there from 25 years ago, man. Like, it's never going to get used. It's still, I mean, I would wear it if I was going back, like it's got beat up shoulder pads, nice elbow pads and stuff like that. But if it is like a late bloomer, Mark, like a 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, they could wear that kit. I mean, I'm not going to. So, like, these secondhand things are fantastic. I'll tell you what is good, Mac. I'm not sure if you've seen Puck Stop. I think it was a season you was last here. Puck Stop made an announcement that they were going to sponsor 5 full sets of goalie gear, very much in the vein that what you were saying there about, the U5 through U10. Hey, come and have a go. Come up to Puck Stop, borrow the kit, try it out for 3 months. And if you like it, we'll give you a discount on gear. You give this back, and we'll give this to the next kid who wants to have a go, so that parents aren't going, oh yeah, little Johnny's just decided that he's watched Mighty Ducks and wants to be he wants to be Goldberg, he wants to be a goalie now. Shit, that's four grand. Like, yeah. What just happened? Especially, we're a football culture. Fucking pair of boots, pair of socks, £7 for your subs. Off you go. You can go play with your pals in the park whenever you want. There's football things. Yeah, it's going to be £4,000. So you say, fucking what now? Like, he was just playing rugby last week and it cost me £15 for the month. Like, we can't compete. So we need initiatives and ideas that we can.
Yeah, I think even to add on to what Puck Stop doing, if you get, I know, like I don't know, all the elite league teams usually have a junior program. Like, if they just buy, or they put, say, Puck Stop on their jerseys, and they can donate 2 or 3 sets of gear to each organization, at least they stay within the area, and I'm obviously I'm not there anymore, so I'm not in talks with anyone there, but just to go off their idea they already got going, like, that's a good way, because now you got there's 10 teams now, you got 100 sets of gear just with sponsorship. Obviously it's quite a bit for Puck Stop, but there are different places you can do that. But
yeah, like skate station,
it is wild for goaltending, and I can't imagine parents doing it. I'm not a parent yet, but hopefully my little daughter.
I've just become one. Let me tell you right now, Brody's not being a fucking goalie. Like, that's
take heavy slap shots to the collarbones, and when they start crying, just don't feel sorry.
I've got a friend, Jordan Lorde, plays in the national. Actually, he's just stepped down. He's like the head guy for True in the UK now. But when he was a kid, he used to be a goaltender, a defenseman, sorry. And at that point, I was coaching like Basingstoke 12s, Basingstoke 16s, and like the hockey basics program. And his mum, the whole family are family friends. And he's got this idea. He's like 7. I'm playing like semi-pro at the time, so I'm out there. His mum's like, this kid wants to be a goalie. Let's figure out if he wants to be a goalie. So I skate in, step over like the hash marks. Maybe a little 60-mile-an-hour snapper. This kid doesn't move. His eyes are on me. He doesn't flinch. I'm like, okay. Now I've got like half clappers from top of the circles. He's 7. He's not moving. I'm like, okay. And I'm gonna zip one off his head. I got off the ice and said to his mum, I'm sorry, I fucking tried. I was like, that's a goalie. Like, I was like, some kids have got it. And like, he didn't flinch once at a shot from a fully grown man. He was 7. I was like, this is a sort of guy. Yeah. He's not just saying, oh, I want to be a goalie because that looks fun. I was like, he's got it about him. Do you think that's important?
Yeah. I mean, I think even like you see it, I mean, definitely not at our level, at pro level. But you go around and like I was telling you beforehand, I was skating with Greenie today, but you go around to these Greenfield off Sheffield. And you go around to these like goalie schools type stuff. And as a pro, you're just jumping in and bringing shooters with you and just jumping in the drills and trying to get some ice time for, somewhat cheap and getting some instruction from some goaltending coaches. Then you're looking around and these junior kids and you're just like, I don't know, man, like they're shooting from top of the circles and you're flinching. Like, I don't know if that's something, because you can't teach that. No. Like if you're either scared of the puck or you're not. there's no, all right, we just get bigger equipment. Like sometimes it's just gonna hurt,
Yeah.
like hockey hurts sometimes, and you just gotta wear it and kind of tough it out and just, yell or yell at yourself to get over it or just bite your tongue or what. But sometimes it hurts, and you just got to be okay with it as a goal, even as a player too, right? Like you guys are blocking shots, and that's probably
Do you
worse.
find that the
You guys are
craziest
great.
thing? Do you find that the craziest thing, right? You've got all this gear on, and those fucking idiots jump in front of it, no face shield, like, wait.
And
My
you can
goalie's
tell the
always
teams
just,
that buy in though. Like when
oh
you're on a
yeah,
team that buys into it, it's so contagious. Like one guy does it, then you got 16 other guys doing it. And when you have a team that one guy doesn't want to do it, then that game, for some odd reason, everyone's just kind of pull and shoot. Where then the next game could be the exact opposite. But it's such a contagious thing, blocking shots. But it's fun to watch as a goalie. Like I get so pumped.
oh really? Love it.
Yeah, I think it's great. Obviously, if it doesn't go in after they hit them, that's fine.
Yeah, how bad does that suck? The
Oh,
guy's like dummied it. He's fucking put his foot, he's put his ankle in the line of duty, and then it goes fucking top cheese because you went the other way.
yeah, I don't know. You can't really get mad at it because you want them to block shots. Like obviously, there's a time and a place where like you can talk about it after the game and be like, hey, like maybe if we take out, whatever. But in the heat of the moment, it's just tough luck.
Going into your juniors, then you touched on, I think, when you were 14, moving to Chicago to a new neighborhood, which was quite tough and stuff like that. What I wanted to ask, I've always thought that being a goalie, you need a very strong mental game. Did going out of your comfort zone and move into like a more dangerous area, not knowing anyone, like getting your head down and sticking to hockey, did that give you like a mental advantage? Did you like learn from it, or did it give you any peaks?
Um, I've honestly never really thought about it. Like I was fortunate enough, like the neighborhood I lived in when I was away from home was very good. Family's very well off, and super nice. Like still in contact with them, the O'Sullivans. And it just got to a point where like they had 4 daughters, right around my age and older. And so like when I turned 15, they're like, I can't really have you in here anymore. And nothing happened, thank
No
God.
shit.
Yeah, nothing
Imagine that,
happened.
like you just move in town. You're like, oh yeah, so we're going to move you in with these billets. They have a 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old daughter. How do you feel about that? Okay.
Yeah, I really didn't have an idea, but like it wasn't an issue. If anything, like we were like public enemy number one. Like me and the youngest daughter that was close to my age, like I don't know, looking back, maybe it was flirting. But me as a 14-year-old kid, I was just like, I don't know why you hate me, but I'm just gonna stay in my lane in the house and you stay in your lane. But it was mostly the school, like public schools, obviously in the US are, I don't know, I'm sure in the UK they're pretty tough too, from just what I've seen on the streets. But
it is at the moment, man. These kids keep fucking killing each other with knives, man.
Oh really? Yeah. Ours was like, I think we
so
had a
bad.
fist fight every day. I was we call it freshman year, so I was in ninth grade. There was a fist fight every day. And if it wasn't in school, it was like, hey, you're meeting me at this kid's house. Like some kid had like a fenced in house, and it was just
Backyard balls, Kimbo slice
yeah.
style, yeah.
Kimbo
Yeah,
slice, yeah.
it was just wild. Like, hey Mac, are you coming? I'm like, no,
No, I'm all right.
like
Got practice.
other things.
Coach is going to
Yeah.
be like, why the fuck have you got a black eye and a broken nose?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got nationals next week, and you're like, yeah, it's all good. I'll wear a helmet.
Yeah. And I played up level while in Chicago too. When I was 14, I was playing midget minor, I think they called it, midget AAA minor. So that was with like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, I think. Or maybe just the 16, maybe U15, U16.
Yeah, that's right.
And then midget major was 16 to 18. So I played my 14-year-old year at the minor level and 15-year-old year with the older kids at the major level.
You played with Chicago Fury, and correct me if I'm wrong, were you playing against teams like Shattuck and like the top tier 1 schools?
Yeah. Shattuck was the only, like, we played, I guess Culver Academy would be considered similar. So yeah, we would go to tournaments, and they would all be there. Little Caesar, CompuWare, TI, like Team Illinois, Mission. So I was on the last year with I forget. So it was Fury beforehand, but it was something previously to that, the Chill, Chicago Chill, and then switched to the Fury. I think Keith Primo might have bought it out or something like that. That's when Fury was like a hockey company for like a week.
A week. Like
Yeah,
a week.
feels like a week. I
Yeah.
think it was like a couple of years, but yeah. So I think just being the youngest kid on the team for a long time, I kind of had to like toughen up a little bit. I think that's what the elite league kind of saw in my game. I don't like take a lot of stuff. It's probably a little too much at times, but I think I kind of had to stand up
Not
for
for me or
myself.
Mark. Not for us. We love that shit. Like keep going.
Yeah, so I think I had to
Keep
stand
doing
up for myself.
that.
Yeah, gotten a few fights in practice my first few years there, just with like, guys shooting head high on purpose. And the coach came up to me after one drill, like I was perfectly fine with getting hit in the head. I just, whatever, and yell at each other and get over it in the locker room, and it's fine. And he said, hey, if they shoot at your head this drill, like, because he had told them to shoot low from a certain spot, he goes, hey, if they shoot high in this drill, shed them if you want. I'm like,
Open
okay.
season.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. And they're all 18-year-old kids. I'm 15. Like, they're all big boys compared to what I was at the time. And so I just dropped my mitts and chucked them, and like bloody nose, like all over my jersey, and just whatever, just got me in the right spot. And like didn't even really think about it, just put the helmet back on and got back in there, and coach was like, you're bleeding everywhere. Get the heck off my ice right now. So like walking through the lobby and blood everywhere. So he fixed it up and then right back on. And me and the guy were fine. Like that's kind of the way I grew up.
Yeah.
It's if you have an issue and you can't talk it out, obviously in the heat of the moment, usually it's tough to talk things out, and you just scrap and you're good to go.
How much do you think that like shapes you going forward? Because obviously in the UK now there's no fighting in juniors. When I grow up, they trialed it a little bit at U19s. Like they let us fight, and like helmets off, gloves off, square go, 2+2. Like it was 2+2. So they trialed it and it worked. And then guys like us went onto the league and we could fight men because we've been doing it for fucking years. Even when we went in at 16, 17, whatever it would have been. Whereas now they're taking it away. The queue, they're trying to shove it up your ass if you drop your gloves in the queue. I remember when I played in Florida, I was bantam, so I was U16, and obviously midget was like you say, it was major midget. That's the teams they were playing against. It was like U18. So I played I played most of the season until about March, and then I started skating with the midgets. Now I've been watching the midgets practice all year. We had some of the best guys in the country at that point. There was 3 or 4 fights every single week. I had a fight my first session in midget, done really well. Coaches fucking loved it. Get called into the room after. They've been watching it from up top. Hey, we don't want you like breaking your hand or stuff like you're here to score goals or whatever. So I get the right act first, and then you think, fuck. And then as you're walking out, they're like, by the way, we fucking love that. You're like, okay. So I'm doing the right thing here. Like, and that allowed me then to go on and do it at pro with some confidence. I wasn't just like dropping my gloves and going, fuck, I don't know. I've not done this before. You'll get scared real quick when you realize you stood across a guy that's had 47 fight majors and you have 0.
Yeah, no, I think it's like for me personally, like, obviously I love it. I don't think I've ever shied away from that comment, but there's obviously a time and a place. I've made some wrong decisions and done it at a bad times in my career, whether it's in practice or whatever. But in my mind, once it's over, especially in practice. Like, I think it can help a team if it's taken the right way. It can obviously hurt a team if it's taken the wrong way. But it's just an intensity thing for me. And like just to touch on what you had said, like being able to defend yourself against an older guy is so important. And in my opinion, it settles games down as well. Like in Denmark, it's kind of a no-go to fight. And I know in a lot of other European leagues, it's the same, but I think just being around those leagues, and then let's compare it to the EI, like the EI is more of a tame way of like, it's more of a safe hitting culture compared to those other leagues where guys are just taking full on runs at each other, like from behind. And the worst thing you're going to get is a face wash and you get kicked out of the game. Where in the EI, like, you got a guy like Big Mark Lewis, and you're gonna run Richie.
You're gonna find out.
You run Richie from behind.
You're gonna find out real quick.
Option. Yeah, if you make it to Mark, like there'd be 5 other guys on the ice trying to get to you anyways. But I think that
So obviously you played both. You played both. Even though that's not your job, you're a goalie. Did you miss that when you went to Denmark? Maybe, I don't know, puck gets fucking rimmed in. You come out behind the net to stop it. Your D man comes to get it, and the guy gets fucking drilled from behind. And then you know that everybody's just literally going to stand there, like you say, might be a face wash. Do you miss the fact that Big Mark's going to skate in with the gloves already off, and that guy is going to get taken to Pound Town?
Yeah, like obviously, like you said, for me, it's not really any of my business. But as a hockey player and like someone that wants to integrate themselves into the team, it is like a little disappointing when you see someone in a vulnerable position get just cranked and no one does anything. And it's not really their fault because you can't. And what's the trade-off, for 2 games or whatever it might be. But in my opinion, if that guy that's taking a run has this in the back of his head, especially, like, I don't want to like sound too like, I don't know, sensitive to different cultures, but like if a European kid's taking a run at someone, like chances are if he knows he has to fight some big ass North American kid, some Canadian
farmer guy from fucking
not gonna go
out west.
Yeah, like even you see Europeans in the NHL, like obviously there are a few like guys that can fight and are tough, but it's few and far between. And then they get a hold of like a junior kid that went to the WHL or the OHL. It's like, okay, we can see the difference here.
Yeah.
But I think, like, to touch on what you said again, like I think it's a big thing for safety of the game. I know it's not the safest thing when you're going buckets off and chucking haymakers at each other and watching people fall and hit their heads on the ice, but
very
overall,
rare. It's very rare.
Especially if you know what you're doing, right? If you know what you're doing,
I think I was 78, 80 tilts, right? Like the ones that actually got put down on the scorecard, not the ones in line brawls where no one sees what you do and what's going on. I hit my head on the ice a grand total of fucking 0 times. I had a total of 0 concussions from ice hockey fighting. Hits, on the other hand, I fucking mangle my head off the ice. Off like, I don't know, like try to drive my net on someone like yourself, big goalie. You cut wide. And back then, it might have not been coached, but maybe encouraged. Put that motherfucker through the back of the net on the first shift. Especially a big guy like you, he might react. I might stand in front and you might chop me all night and I might get 2 power plays. But now it's maybe a little bit different how obviously the game's played. But then there was so much gamesmanship and bending of the rules, let's call it. I kind of miss that a little bit. You probably don't, because there's
the gamesmanship for sure, I think, is missed 100%. Like even like in Denmark now, like there's no fighting. So like in playoffs this year, you could tell it was all right. Let's see if we can get Mac off his game. But like literally, these guys know I love that shit.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Like, oh, I'm having an off night. Like maybe I didn't make a great first save, or didn't feel comfortable making the save. Still 0-0, and then some guy like wants to drive the net or chop me from behind after I make a pass or something. Like, all right, now the brain's clicked on, and now I just want to shove it up your hoop.
You bring that battle level up, right?
Yeah, not that I wasn't trying to get it there already, but like just a little bit of encouragement, goes along.
Helps when someone spears you in the back of the knee. That'll up your compete level real quick.
Yeah, or when somebody like celebrates in your face that had nothing to do with the goal, and you're looking up, you're like,
yeah. The only reason you got the plus bud is because you're on the ice. You've done nothing. Like settle down.
Good line change, yeah.
Hey, it works the other way as well. Save yourself a minus.
Exactly.
Had my guy changing up in the back check. Oh, there you go. The one from a goalie perspective. What would you do? Because obviously you see the ice better than any of us ever have in our whole careers. When you're looking up ice and you see a guy change on a back check, when you get in the room at the end of the period, you got a fucking word for him or what?
I think as a goalie, like, I don't know, I learned to pick my spots, and those are some issues I had like in Cardiff, and I think earlier on in my European career was maybe stepping in where maybe it wasn't really my turn to say anything. Just in the heat of it, like even in between periods, like I can still like at a super high intensity level. Pretty much the
reds are still burning, and
so like some things maybe don't come out the way they should. But I always try to like talk to the guy afterwards and be like, hey, sorry, that definitely wasn't meant in this way, but you're a part of a team, and this is what I saw, and this is what everyone else sees. Obviously, if you're gassed, and you're not going to do any good if you're back checking to nobody. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's kind of what I've learned last few years, and just kind of pick and choose your spots. And I think this year it went a long ways. Probably like the biggest turning point of my like leadership role on the team. Like obviously being an older guy now is, kind of picking and choosing the spots, and maybe taking a guy aside instead of, getting into it with him in practice, which I still do from time to time. Like we were struggling in playoffs first round, and had a practice that was supposed to be intense and kind of get our intensity level back. And one of the young guys was dicking around and like not really going hard. And it was against one of our better players. And obviously he needs to bring his game up. So I'm seeing that. I'm like, what are you guys doing? So I'm like kind of pushing him in front of the net. It's a screen drill, pushing him in front of the net, pushing him in front of the net. He turns around and like just whacks me. So I'm just smiling. I'm like, yes, this is what I want. Perfect. That's perfect. So I keep like poking his skates, like nothing crazy. And he cross checks me. So I cross check and it, blows up and turns into a little bit of a scrum, nothing crazy. But then the coach looked like that's exactly what we needed today.
Bit of good juju going there.
Yeah. Let's do our quick bag skate and let's get off the ice. Like we won the next 3. Like closed the series out, and that was it. And we kind of moved on through playoffs. But
St. Louis when they won the
who
cup.
knows if I just say something to him, who knows if that changes. But like just to get the intensity level up, especially in playoffs, like I think it's a big thing. And then we're best buddies now, and we were beforehand, but there's a quick handshake and a hug afterwards, and everyone's laughing and giving us crap for being idiots, and away you go. But
what was it? Robert Batuzzo and I can't remember who it was in the April. In the April before St. Louis went into the Cup Finals and went absolute. Like, and that was on like fucking TSN and everything. That was on camera. Like
I was like,
and those boys got fucking nuts.
Yeah.
They lost like 2 games after that.
Yeah, every championship team I was on, we've always had practice tilts. Every team I've been on, like when I was in Portland in juniors, there was probably fights every month, and it was just part of it. And then you went into the locker room, and the coaches kind of brought you in both of the room if they felt like it was an issue, and you either talked it out or shook hands, and you just moved on. So I think just from that side of culture is a little different than Europe. I don't think in Europe they do that as much. No. So it's taken me a while to kind of figure that role out as a leader, and where and when to say things. Obviously, I don't want to be fighting anymore. I'm 31, so yeah, little old to be crushing those. But just as a leadership role, as a goaltender, it's tough because you obviously don't play. But like you said, you do see a lot, so it's picking your words. And maybe sometimes I just go to the captain and be like, "Hey, this is going on," or "This is going on," and then it's up to him whether he says something. And we have a really good role. We have a really good group in Denmark that I've gotten along with well, and it's a perfect fit. So happy to be going back, and wish we could have stayed the summer, but it's kind of how it works out there. You kind of have to go back for tax reasons because it's crazy what they pay in taxes out there.
Oh, so yeah. You touched a little bit on being in Portland, but before you went to Portland, you left midget AAA hockey, and you went on to the NAR, which is the NAHL for anybody who doesn't know, Tier 1 Junior A. What was it like getting your kind of first experience and taste of that level of hockey? And then were you expecting to, when a lot of the kids that go to like the NAR or play the USHL, they're aiming to go NCAA Div 1. So what did you think of your first taste, and was that your goal, or were you still looking to go major junior?
Yeah, so I kind of put the cart in front of the horse, as they say. So I I verbally committed to a full ride scholarship to Duluth when I was 15, which was like, now looking back, like that's crazy, but now kids are doing it all the time. Like before I could even drive, I was, committed to a college for 4 years. And I believe I was drafted in the USHL to Omaha or something, and they didn't have a good relationship with the coach in UMD. So he said, "Hey, you're not going to go here. Like, we're going to put you in the NAL for a new team. And, the coaches have already like accepted you," type of thing, or the staff has already accepted you as like their young goalie. And I was put with a 20-year-old, I think our first year. And we did really well. I think we lost in the finals to Keith Kincaid. forget what team he was on, but we lost in the finals to them like 4-1 or something like that. And that was my first junior experience. But same type of thing, youngest kid on the team. Just kind of have to stand up for yourself and kind of learn and listen. And I was super serious about the game at that point, like not your typical junior hockey like kid, like no booze and like didn't really have a girlfriend very much, like a girlfriend here or there, but like nothing
Married to
to
the
write
game.
home, nothing to write home about, nothing to like brag about in the locker room or anything. Just kind of a bit of a hockey nerd at that point, and maybe still am. But so then the next year comes around and get a call from Duluth, like, hey, our goalie just left, Staylock. You just signed a pro contract. Goalie just left. We'd like you to stay not just your 17-year-old year and come in as an 18, which was the plan, to come in as a true freshman. We'd like you to come in as a 19-year-old, so you want to stay another year in juniors. And I think I was just on a absolute tear at the beginning of the season. I think I went 10-0 with stupid numbers, silly numbers, like 0.9 against and I don't know, like a 95 or a 96 save percentage. So my family advisor at the time and or agent, whatever you want to call, we talked about it. And at that time, I think Portland had my rights in the WHL, and it bounced around quite a few times in the summer. Like we got calls from certain organizations. I don't think they're allowed to talk to players, so I won't say their names, but certain organizations, and obviously some were less kind of desirable than others as far as what kind of team they had and where they were located in North America. So Portland picked up our rights and they had a good 92 class. I don't even know if I can list all the first round draft picks on our team that year, but it was pretty crazy. So we ended up somehow getting out of the Null in Wenatchee, which was a crazy story in itself. They wouldn't let me leave, like, because it was a USA card. I think they do it like overseas too. They do like the player cards, like the transfers back and forth.
Yeah.
So they had my card, like kind of my rights to be a player somewhere. And so they wouldn't let me leave, and I couldn't leave without this card. When obviously it's a fictitious thing, like it's not a real thing. It's just a saying. So I had to have a lawyer come into the locker room after practice one day to get my card released because they refused to release me. I was a 15-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid trying to talk to a coach who didn't want me to leave. So I'd come in there, minds all twisted up, like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not leaving. Like, I guess I can't. Then I'd call my agent and be like, no, why'd you say, like, no, go back in there and tell them you're gone. And I'm like, tell a 45-year-old guy who's played in the NHL and had 87 fights, Paul Baxter, to, pretty much, I want to leave is a tough spot for a 16-year-old kid to do. But
yeah.
So my girlfriend at the time, her dad would happen to be just like a lawyer. So agent called him and like, hey, can you help him out? He needs to get the heck out of here. So he came in the locker room and took all our gear out and went on a 2-week just boycott. Didn't go to the rink, didn't go to school. Eventually, somebody took over and was like, yeah, you got to release them because they wanted money for the draft. It was a draft year and whatever. And I was projected to go high. So they wanted their money like every other junior team does, I guess. So I went to Portland and I really had to go in blind. Because I called UMD and like, hey, I'm going to go check this out. If it doesn't work out, come back and we'll make a decision from there. And they're like, if you go, you're gone. Like, you might as well just go. They're going to wine and dine you. So just go. Like, all right. So I guess we made our decision, like, without really making it, which was scary. I went from having a 4-year scholarship to nothing. And I'm not sure what Portland ended up paying Wenatchee, but it was significant enough where I didn't get all the cool money everyone else did back in the day to go to the dub. But we had a great team. Like, I had no regrets. Obviously, it was the first 2 weeks were a bit tough mentally and physically. It's obviously a man's game with all the farm boys from up north, but compared to the NA, but after that 2 weeks, like, kind of fit right in and we had some unbelievable teams. I think we went to 3 straight finals. We won 1. I think we got to the Western Conference Finals 4 times. Still think I hold the record for the most wins in the WHL for playoffs as a goaltender.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Which is, an accomplishment, and sometimes not because you have to stay for a while. But I was lucky enough to be on some great teams. We had Ryan Johansson, Dino Niederreiter, Sven Barchi, Ratty. Like the list goes on. Seth Jones. Like go on for days about all the guys that went through Portland during those years. Like Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's actually from Herning, and gave me a call when I was thinking about going there. So just a real tight knit group of guys, and super fortunate I've gone there. Mike Johnson is probably one of the better coaches I've ever had in my life. So, and he was a big like mental skills guy too, and I think that helped me throughout my career as a pro. So, and then was fortunate enough to get drafted by Chicago out of there. But all in all, like a really positive junior experience. Made a name for myself as kind of a tougher goalie, so it was good in that way too.
When you got drafted, was it expected? And did you have like any sort of contact with teams prior to the draft, or was it completely unexpected?
I think I was projected to go earlier than what I did go. And so like 7th round came around and I just kind of left the house. I'm like, go have a good year next year as an overager, or not overager, sorry, a 19-year-old, and maybe I'll get picked up in the next draft. And then literally leaving the neighborhood in my truck with my best buddy. We're going to go to some graduation parties or something. My mom calls, "Hey, get back here. You're going to Chicago." I'm like, "You're kidding." Like, all right, like come back and get the call from the agent and stuff. I don't think I received a call from anyone in Chicago that late in the draft. I think it's kind of show up to our development camp and thanks for coming type of thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of went into it with a chip on my shoulder. Like, I was supposed to go, let's say 4 to 5, and you end up going 7, and how many teams passed you over. So, and I've always kind of had a chip on my shoulder kind of guy. Like that's kind of my mentality, I think. And, helps me to play better at times if I can control it. So I just went into there and just out-competed everyone at that age level because I think they drafted 2 goalies along with me. So, and I think 3 years later, I ended up being the only guy still in the organization from that era as far as goalies go. So
yeah,
accomplished.
They took Kent Simpson in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
And I've got your goalie draft class here. The thing is, as well, fans that are watching along that might not be too familiar, not many goalies go in the first few rounds ever. No. Notoriously,
Campbell maybe went first
so
round.
Jack Campbell went number 11 overall.
Yeah,
and then the Phoenix Coyotes took Mark Vistinen.
Yeah, Visinton.
Yeah, Visinton. Calvin Pickard went to Colorado, and Kent Simpson in the 2nd round went to the Blackhawks. 3rd round, Scott Wedgwood went to the Devils. 4th round, Sam Britton went to the Panthers, where Mathieu Corbel went to the Jackets. Sammy Otakolo went to the Avalanche. Philip Grubauer, that's probably one of the better goalies in that draft.
Yeah,
he went to the Capitals, 112, and then nothing really. The one that kind of stands out in the next couple of rounds for me is the guy that went slightly just before you is Frederick Anderson. He went on to have like an absolute, for a 7th rounder, this guy went on to have a money NHL career.
Yeah, no, and he's, I would say, top 3 goalies in NHL right now, so. And I didn't even know that he was drafted right before me because his little brother is actually my goalie partner next year. So
really? He went four spots ahead of you.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's actually, I'll have to bring that up because his dad was my goalie coach this year, so I didn't even know that. So bring it up to him when I see him back in Herning. They're all from Herning, so. But yeah, it was like looking back, like probably wish I wasn't drafted. I know it's weird to say. From like a fan perspective, but you look at some guys that ended up in, say, Arizona as a goalie there wasn't much there as far as depth. You get a little bit of a better chance. Not that is an excuse by any means, but
you might get a look.
You might get 2 or 3. Like you might blow one up and then someone gets hurt and you get another one just by chance. Where for me it was I had to play my bag off just to get a chance in the A. I got beat out Simpson. He's no longer playing hockey. I beat out Mark Byzantine. He's no longer playing hockey, and this was all before I left Chicago. So that was just kind of checking just going after the next guy, going after the next guy, going after the next guy. And that's kind of how it is in North America, right? Is this guy's ahead of you and you're going to do whatever it takes to, might be a good guy, might be friends off the ice, but you're going to do whatever it takes to get his job the next season, because it's a lot like Europe in that way where you're signing contracts, you're kind of filtered into a spot before you even show up, which is good and bad. Obviously, if you're the guy, that's good and little easier in the summer, but if you're the guy behind and you got to work that much harder because he's working too. So
how were those initial training camps when you're like stepping out a junior and taking that next step up to that NHL training camp level? Obviously, you've been drafted by Chicago. You said, "Hey, we'll see you there," type thing. When you have that summer to prepare and then you head off and go there, what's the mindset throughout the summer? What's the training regime? And then how was it when you like rock up and get into the first couple of practices?
Yeah, most teams will give you like a workout, like training routine, I guess, like a kind of a thing to follow. But I think now most guys have their own trainers. Like Jeff Lavecchio out of St. Louis is, I think, who a lot of guys that I know use now at Ripped Hockey. But it's all, I guess it's all kind of the same now. Like everyone's smart enough. But Chicago is super into fitness. And I was lucky enough to be halfway decent at that point in my career. Like VO2 max and all the things that really matter for goalies. Like I don't need to put up 300-pound bench. I can do whatever I want on bench and be just fine. So just like focusing on the goalie stuff, I think was what we went with. Lower body and just kind of VO2 max and Wingate, I think was what we focused on most that first year.
Wingate is if no one knows what the Wingate is.
Bad.
What's that?
Not bad. VO2 is okay. Like but the Wingate is miserable. 30 seconds. And I think it goes off body weight on how much weight is on the wheel. And 30 seconds as fast as you can go for 30 seconds.
Imagine someone
so long.
A blowtorch inside your lungs, inside your legs, even your fucking hands, everything. It's 30 seconds of pain just escaping your body. It's not nice.
Oh, I think every year I was there at camp, which is 5 out of 6, I think I went to. I was injured one year. Is Jonathan Toews puking in the bathroom after the Wingate. The most in shape guy I've ever seen in my life, puking in the bathroom after the Wingate. And I'm sitting there like...
That's intimidating.
Just like eating my breakfast before I go in there. I'm like, maybe not. Do it dry. But I was super excited. First, like they do a development camp in July, I believe. I don't know what it is now with the COVID schedule shift, but I think July 7th, usually after the draft. So July 7th development camp every year until you sign your entry level deal. And it's just a lot of fun. It's obviously hard work. You're there for 3-4 hours a day at the rink, just working hard the entire time. Whether it's off ice, I think it's like an hour and a half off ice, a practice, and then a game. And it all fills in 3.5-4 hours. And it's just bang, bang, bang right to the next thing. Because I think it's like a PHPA rule. They can't have you there for too long. And so that part's,
Imagine
tough.
that back in the day before that rule come in, the coaches come in, you're doing
you're here for 10 hours.
10 hours, fucking 2 hours bag skate.
5 hours on ice, 5 hours of video. You better not sleep.
I think the difference is then though, they had like a 2-week training camp and the guys have been getting fucking buckled for the last 3 months.
Like no one came in shape. Yeah, exactly.
Since they would play all these preseason games to get you hear these guys from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and they were like, yeah, we got training camp to get in shape. So I get it then, but now all the guys, even at the elite league level, Danish level, Del 2, all these other levels, all the guys are looking after themselves. They're all in shape. When they come back in, they might be 6-7 pounds heavier, probably 5 pounds out of water. Like by the time they get going, 2-3 preseason games, you're good to go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different era from like the 80s. But yeah, like I had a blast. Like we would Chicago's a great city, and I mean it's a little shady now, I guess. I haven't been back in a while, but it's a great city. We go to the beach, like they put us up in great spots. Obviously, it's the NHL, like no expense, spared. We go on the beach every day with the boys and play beach volleyball if we still had any energy left, and then go back and do it all the next day and spend our $100 a day in per diem on a $10 Chipotle and call it cash everything else.
I was about to funny. You read my mind. I was going to ask about getting the per diem checks. Obviously, I don't know how much it is once you get to main camp, but obviously anyone that listens to this podcast probably a Chicklets fan as well. And Biz and Wit tell the famous story about trying to stick around in St. Louis at camp when they knew they were done just for the fucking per diem checks. Like,
Yeah.
Did you ever make it to main camp? And if so, like, how much
Yeah.
that per diem jump up?
So being like a draftee, you're more or less invited to main camp every year, especially in North American, because our seasons haven't started yet. Like I was slotted to go to the East Coast right away, and then the next year, whatever I was, AHL, East Coast, whatever it ended up being. But so I'm always at main camp for at least the first week. Everyone's at main camp, and you can always tell like when you're gonna kind of depart by how thick your packet is, like on day one. So it's like it's still thick. It's $1,000 for the week,
Nice.
just for meals. But they feed you most of your meals anyway, so it's really just cash.
It's just cash.
Yeah. So you feel you're like, oh, I guess we'll be making the first cut this year. Guess I'm going to Rockford early and hanging out for a week and waiting for everybody else. Or the next year, it's a little bit thicker. Maybe I might make the next cut. And because like I don't know, you want to make it to the finals. Obviously, you want to make it to the final cut. You want to play preseason games. You want to play that last preseason game where they go overseas, or you want to be a part of the boys as much as you can because that's the dream, right? You want to be with the NHL guys.
Especially in that organization at that time, it was.
They won three cups. I watched them win 3 cups when I was there. It was just like, oh, guess I'll sit in the AHL again.
Yeah, I guess I'm not getting a game then, boys. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, and I was lucky enough they gave me a preseason game.
That's all right. They'll come back.
They gave me a preseason game, and I got a shutout. Fleury was on the other side, and they gave me half a game, so it was like the second half. I think we won like 2-1. And I got a shutout my half of the game, and I was like pumped. Literally next day, going to Stan Bowman's office. Hey Mac, I think this is the best camp you've had since you've been here. Like super excited to see what you do.
Bye.
Down in Rockford this year, but you're going to Rockford tomorrow. Thanks. Like
see ya.
Perfect. All right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Appreciate it. So just like
people in this country have no idea how fucking cutthroat it is.
It's super cutthroat, and a lot of his decisions are made before you get there.
I think junior hockey here, maybe a little bit different when I did it. Let's call it 10 years ago, last year. So what we have in this country and what we used to have, they've changed it to a showcase now. But before it was a tournament, and it was Southwest, so that'd be like Basingstoke, Guildford, Cardiff, I don't know, Bracknell, whoever it was. And then they play off against the Southeast. We had Romford, Chelmsford, Invicta, all the teams from like Kent and Essex. And, Haringey, the teams in London, Streatham. Then you'd have like the Midlands, it would be Nottingham, Sheffield, Peterborough, Telford. And then you have Scotland and the North. And these tournaments were good. It was like the best kind of hockey that we could really get at that level in the UK. So when you're thinking about like when you guys are going to travel tournaments, that's like a really, really good standard. That was the only kind of real good standard we got because the leagues were a joke. I've gone off on a tangent and I forgot. How do we start that conversation? Bring me back to it. We just talked about something. I got off on a tangent. I fucking confused my brain.
You're good. Development camp. I don't know. Playing. I don't know.
Oh, where was I going with that? Oh, you said I don't know. It'll come back to me. And it's how we do things on 4,000 counter. I'm not going to worry about it. But it's I'm not going to worry about it. It's just one of those things. But no, we get these experiences, and that's where you'd see a Liam Kirk, and you go, okay, so this kid's one of the kids that can do it against everybody, because all you'd ever seen in the UK prior to that is, and I don't know how it is now in North America or any of the junior hockey you managed to see on your travels, but like the one-sided results. Like, fucking teams winning 10-1 every week. No one's getting any better. This is where we struggle in the UK with that lack of depth and that lack of a real high level where we are outside of these showcases. Where did the UK, where do they draw from to develop? Because a lot of the time we're guilty of like trying to follow the Canadian route. It's not going to work. We don't have that many fucking ice rinks. It's that simple. It is that simple. Ice time is hard to come by. You've been around Europe. What sort of like programs have you seen? Obviously, we've seen Denmark have highly successful international for forever. They're pretty much a perennial Pool A nation. They're like, we can just accept them as a Pool A nation. They're not going down. Germany, much the same. You've been in both countries. Where could the UK improve to take the next step and to keep GB as a Pool A nation long term?
I think it's obviously easier said than done. I'm sure everyone said it is the youth, right? Cardiff does a very good job with the edge there, or extreme edges, with the youth program from what I've seen. The amount of kids on the ice, and lucky enough, Sam was a sponsor of mine when I was in Cardiff.
Shout out Sammy Martin, my boy.
Yeah, super good dude. But I think it's hard because like Hungary was the same thing. Like they have so many kids playing ice hockey. Germany, so many kids playing ice hockey. But same thing with you guys, I guess. Like football's majority of where they go with the Bundesliga there. But I think a lot of it comes down to cost. Like we talked about earlier. Like in Germany, these kids are running around with like hangers, full sets of gear on them. Like that's their hanger for the year. And then next year maybe it's up the size or whatever it might be. But I think that's a good start. Like we talked about earlier, I think that's a huge start because obviously once it becomes less expensive, then more kids can come in and, maybe kids that don't look like you or me can join in too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, but I don't know. Yeah. Denmark's the same thing. Like it's a small town, but you look at Herning, how many NHL players came out of Herning?
Yeah.
Crazy amount. It's insane.
And like, if you watch their national team, I was in the arena in Košice in Slovakia 2019 when they put a fucking pounding on GB. I think it was 9-2 in the end, 9-3. And GB played great against America. Like they played great. I was there, but they played against America. Like I think they held them to like 0-0 until like, I don't know, 30 minutes in, whatever it was. Yeah. Like they performed very well. So the next day, then they played against Denmark. And the difference, like you could see, obviously we've got quite a few dual nats, but the difference with what you could see for me was like all these Danish guys. They look like the equivalent of what we would class as imports in the UK.
Yeah,
they're like local guys. They didn't look like local guys. They look like fucking imports that we would bring in here and go, hey.
They only have a few NHL guys come back from now. Like Ehlers
so good.
Comes back, I think, because his dad's the coach, I'm pretty sure. But we have that big number 50 Bow. He's a top player in our team. He's stands in front of the PK or the power play for Team Denmark. And our captain's on the team too. So these guys are all like, that's the thing. Like the UK's got to figure out a way to keep their top end guys once they leave the NHL, obviously, or once they don't make the NHL, let's say. Find a way, like that league is find a way to keep those guys around. Like you got a guy like Perlini, I guess, who is an import in the league, which is the silliest thing ever.
Liam
like
Stewart,
Evan Bowes,
Liam Stewart, but Liam Stewart's a Brit in the National League, and he's a fucking import in the Elite League. His dad's Rod Stewart. He's like a fucking British icon. He's the most British thing that we have. And they're like, yeah, buddy, you played in the dub, so you're not a Brit.
Yeah,
like,
I think.
What do you mean?
I think the best thing for that, the best thing for development, actually, to go back to your point on how to upgrade your game, all those leagues, all those teams, it's under 10 for imports in the top league in the nation.
So we've just gone 15. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard, and I actually want to bring it up a little bit, but obviously let you guys steer the conversation. But That's a perfect example of how to bring your nation's youth up. Like Waller, what's his third year in the EI?
Phenomenal.
Something like that, maybe fourth, I don't know. But obviously a standout player. One probably should be an import somewhere else just to expand his horizons a bit.
I'd
But
love to see
obviously,
him get a job in like the Dell 2 or come up
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
even closer to home. Like he would do well in Denmark, he'd do well in Norway.
They do very well in Denmark.
Because
Very
he
well
can
in Denmark. I think he's a good
skate, man.
player.
He
He
can
skate. Yeah,
skate
exactly.
so well.
Um, and I think, obviously they're doing something right in Cardiff to keep him there. And Cardiff was great to me when I was there too, but these Brits, it's different being an import. It's a different level of responsibility, I think, on the ice and off the ice, I guess, too.
Do you know,
Um,
like, because at some stage, I don't know, you're walking to Sheffield Steelers locker room, Robert Dowd has as much pressure on his shoulders than any import in that fucking league.
I think
Because
from
if Dowdy doesn't chip in with his 25, Foxy's recruitment's fucked because he's counting on him for 25, and the guy that's on the fourth line and only needs to get 5, he might only get 2. So if Dowdy doesn't get his 25, then you're screwed. Like, and it is marginal because the Elite League, you can lose a game in September against Dundee on fucking Tuesday night, and you're done. Like
yeah,
your outcome March.
yeah, I think a lot of that is like a lot of pressure on the Brits is fan based. I think I don't like. I know Mark Richards is not going to have an off year because he's Mark
Not gonna
Richards.
have an off shift. I
He's
don't
a
think.
perfect human, so I'm just going to bring him up because
Legit.
he'll know that I'm not dragging him under the bus or anything. But if he has an off year, he's still going to be a Cardiff Devil.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
say Mac Carruth has an off year, obviously a little different for goalies, but say Mac Carruth has an off year as an import,
You're done.
he's probably not a Cardiff Devil.
Yeah, you're done.
So like that's what I mean by not maybe
No, but I
responsible.
get it. Like you're talking very responsible positions because you have your
Yeah,
captain and then you have
yeah,
your goalie. Whereas your captain's been there 11 years or whatever it is, your goalie's
yeah.
very interchangeable, especially like look at yourself, right? You come over, the numbers you put up are fucking ridiculous. And there is so many guys around the A, so many fucking guys that have been around Europe and these places that we can tap into. There isn't another British Mark Richardson because they
No,
don't grow on trees. Like he is the one. Like that's him. There
yeah.
isn't one in the, I'll tell you right now, there's not one in the National League. There's not a Mark Richardson in the National League right now. There's some good players ready to step up. And I just don't see anyone with the defensive responsibility. You can't remember when Richie was 16, when we played together for like back to that conference tournament I talk about, he was a forward. He was my winger. When we went to GB 18s, I think he was a forward still. Maybe started flirting with D. He's gone on to be one of the most successful British defensemen in history. We
No,
can't
I
we don't
love
we
him to
can't
death,
replace
and I
that.
think he's done very well for himself. Um, but I think like going back to what we were talking about, like it's just a bit of a different pressure when you're an import in a league, especially like Slovakia, where you're just booted. Like
That's
I
it.
know Tansy talked about it a little bit, but it's just a little bit different pressure, and then to be able to bring that back to the British league when you eventually do come back, or if you, I mean, some guys won't. Some guys will go on and have a great career. But I think a key thing, especially maybe even for the Brits, like to make them more important on their teams, is bring down that 15. Like
What's
it,
a good number? Because obviously you've played in the Dell 2, you've played in the Ebel, you've played in Denmark. These guys are big on local talent. Mark, by the way, sorry guys, Mark's had a power cut in Vienna. Um, Vienna, we went to watch Vienna. I think it's 6 imports and fucking 13 local kids or whatever it
I think it's
was.
like
Maybe,
9. It's
yeah, it's
just
not
about
many.
half.
Like
Yeah,
it's maybe half. It's not like you're looking every shift and it's 6 imports on the ice. You're looking and going, oh, there's 3 Austrian kids, or this Austrian guy's good, and you can see them develop because guess what? In a fucking 60 game season, you need to use your bench. You
especially the
can't.
way the EI's built schedule wise, like you have to win every game, which
You
I
need to
think
use your
for
guys.
hockey is super strange. It's worked out, I think, the last few years. I think the best team has won it, like the league. Even when we beat them in playoffs, like we weren't the better team. We were just better that night. Um, and obviously they're very, very well coached, and I would play for that guy any day of the week. if I wasn't already signed somewhere, I guess. But
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
yeah, he is a tactician with the best of them, and the fact that he's hasn't tried to move on says something special about Belfast and kind of how they treat everybody there.
What a city as well. Like
Yeah,
it's my favorite city in the elite league. Like I fucking love it.
yeah, no, it's a good time. I've always had a good time there. Obviously, maybe not on the winning side of things, but
Well,
always had a good time afterwards. But yeah, I think 9, like Denmark's 9, and it makes your national born players, gives them a more of a chance. That's what, 5 more spots for Brits on each team. Plus those high end Brits, those 4 or 5 guys on each team, then they're getting paid more.
yeah.
Which in the end is what you want for your national team guys. You want those guys to get paid more.
Absolutely.
Like,
This is a job. I think people sometimes forget it. Like in
yeah,
the
I
UK,
read some
because
things like when Mosey's going back and forth between, I think he left Cardiff and went to Sheffield, or just everyone's like, oh, he's not loyal. I'm like, yeah, but neither are the organizations. To be
no,
completely fair, neither are the guys that are signing the contracts.
I'm not being
If you have a
funny.
bad
Like
year, you're
it could be
gone.
200 quid extra a week, yeah, which to a fan, they'll be like, yeah, but it's 200 quid extra a week. That's not that much. As if you would leave for that. That's £800 a month. We have a 7-month contract in the UK. That's a fucking big chunk of your salary percentage extra.
Plus, you're
And it
paying
makes
utilities,
it's
which
your
is
job. Like
no
you're
joke
not
in the UK.
you don't owe anyone a favor. Like
No,
you don't owe anyone a favor. This is your job. Like would you come and work in a pub for £9 an hour when you know the other barmaid's getting £13 an hour? No, would you fuck? You
yeah,
wouldn't do it. And if you value your services at X and team only want to pay you Y, goodbye.
yeah. I mean, eventually you're gonna have to like meet in the middle if you can't find anything. But
Yeah.
that's you and your agent and whatever, right? So, but yeah, I think 9 was a good round number. In the Dell 2, it's a developmental league. It's a second league. It's not the Dell. I think the Dell's 9. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
maybe 12, but I think it's 9. But developmental league for the Dell is the Dell 2, and they only allow 4 imports.
And you see Germans progression to the guess what? You see Germans progressing from that league to that league and then to the national team.
Denmark's 9. I know they're like lower division. I think it's Division 1. I forget what it's called, but it's not great. I don't think there's an import in the whole thing.
Right. Okay.
But those kids are getting brought in, or they're going to Sweden. If they're really good, they're going to Sweden for
Play some U20s or
they play U20 in Sweden or the Allsvenskan or whatever it might be. And then they're coming back and playing in Denmark because those guys are getting paid more.
yeah.
Like our top end Danish guys are getting paid more than top end import in the league.
Right.
It's just
That's
like they're more valuable.
well, because there's only X amount of those, but there's
Yeah,
so
how
many
many players are in a national team? There's 20 players on a national team. You got 10 teams or 9 teams in Denmark. That's
a couple
your
of guys each roster.
drop is 2-3 guys a team, and then some of those are in the AHL or some are in North America somewhere, East Coast League if they want, or they're around Europe. Like a lot of their top guys in Denmark are in Swiss or Sweden or Finland.
Have you noticed any sort of scouts coming to check out some of these younger guys that potentially might get drafted, or maybe they might be slept on in their draft year? But because we know Denmark can produce some players, not all of them get drafted, but these guys can play hockey. Like, have you ever seen scouts around the rink maybe coming to check out guys for potentially bringing them to North America?
Yeah, I think the only time you're going to see that is when you have a draft eligible like stud. I don't even know if we had anyone on their draft year on our team. They're all over like 21 or something like that.
Okay.
So I am too old to look into the stands anymore about
to be worried about
that. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, as bad as it sounds, I think a lot of NHL scouts are looking for those 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids that are in Sweden, Finland, and even if it's like an import at that age, in Sweden or Finland from around.
Go further, go faster, get fitter. Subscribe today. Hurricane e-bikes have a great range of bikes available on the e-bike subscription plans. The cruiser e-bikes are perfect for beach rides, long distance rides, or just everyday use. The fat bike e-bikes look great and can cope with the toughest terrain, perfect for off-road adventures. The hybrids range are perfect for about town, everyday use and leisurely rides with the family. Take your ride to the next level with the mountain bike and get ready for your next power-assisted adventure.
And even if it's like an import at that age in Sweden or Finland, from around Europe, like in the Dell, like some guys don't get picked up by a Dell team, but they had a nasty career in the Dell too, and they'll just go to Finland straight away.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know what it might be. Maybe it's politics or whatever in that country, but there's really 4 or 5 leagues, obviously including the KHL, where the NHL is looking. And
yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, it's definitely not the EI. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers and get hate tweets or anything. You guys love your Twitter out there, but
mate, it's been insane this year. Like, if you thought it was bad a couple of years ago, you was here. Shit. These fans are. I don't understand it. Like,
I think I loved it when I was out there because I'm fortunate enough to have some thick skin and whatever. But it's like it's the wives and like the girlfriends of guys that like get so upset about it. Just like, you hear what this person said about you? I'm like, yeah, but this is like Danny 1 2 3 4 7 8. Like, doesn't have a profile picture. Yeah, it doesn't have a profile picture. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
What if it's following, like, and then you go to your next team and they think this about you? I'm like, well, then they didn't do their homework and that's their fault. I don't know.
Yeah, like, don't worry.
At the end of the day, like,
control the controllables, and that's
performance is everything. Like, you win hockey games, you win hockey games. If you don't, probably not gonna have a job too long.
No, this is very true. You really won't. Obviously, you've done your time kind of like jumping up between the A and the coast and the A and the coast. How long into doing that did you think, right, okay, the NHL is not going to happen for me. Let's look into the European route?
I think it was literally the day I left. So I heard Tansy talking about his kind of like schedule. I was called up 12 times in 1 month. So I was called up and sent down 24 times round trip in 1 month, just with like little injuries. Rockford had Michael Layton, played in Philly for a bit and let in that famous goal that Kane scored on him. No one knew if it went in. Game 6, I think, when they won their first cup, 2010. And so they signed him to Rockford, I think 2 years later when I was there, or 3 years later. So I was behind him, and he's an older guy, so he's hurt, a growing pull here, like a backache or whatever. So I was up and down. And same thing as Tansy was saying in the latest episode there was I bought a truck with my signing bonus, which I thought was going to be huge. And like the number on the paper that I signed was huge, but then the number that I got after taxes wasn't very big. Yeah. So I bought a truck, and I think I bought it with 15,000 miles on it. And first year I put 80 on it, 80,000 miles in 1 year. And I'm like, okay, brand new truck. That's pretty much useless now as far as resale value goes. Like, not buying a truck for resale value, but so yeah, I was 12 times up and down, or 24 times up and down that first, I think, 2 months. I think it was. It ended up being like rolling into the next month, but living out of a suitcase. And I'm first year pro, so I'm bringing like a grill, thinking I'm being the coast all year, like in Toledo at the Manor. I brought like a grill, I brought a TV, I brought all this stuff, and then I got to pack it every single time I leave, right? Because you never know if you're going to come back. You don't want to leave all that stuff there. So I learned real quick to pack light my first year. Second year was a bit more stable. I think I spent 85 days in an extended stay hotel in Rockford. Ended up beating a guy out for a job there, and then pretty much in Rockford the rest of the way, maybe backing up quite a bit. We had some tough teams there, and then
you every did have summer, some real tough teams back in those Rockford days. Jeez.
Yeah, tough on the ice, and then we couldn't like score a whole bunch, but we lost a lot, which is unfortunate. but I saw a lot of rubber and got better, and it was good for goaltending wise. Always tried to leave, tried to kind of get out of the Chicago system because, like we talked about earlier, like it's tough if you're in a system where there's depth, like tons of depth, and they kept bringing in 35-year-old goalies in the AHL, because they just
Giving them
wanted to
like
win.
a 750 contract and just let them
Yeah,
ride it out for
yeah.
a year.
I think I'm sweet making 90. These guys are making 450 in the A. I'm like, oh, okay, well, little different story. I guess you're starting today.
Yeah.
But it was all for Chicago, right? It's like, oh, okay, this will be our third guy that we call up every time. Like, let's, I don't know what they said about me, but Mac's not ready to, stand in and be a starter in the NHL yet. So let's bring in this guy just in case we do lose two. So it was always, always trickles down. So I always tried to get out and go to any other organization. I had a chance to bet on myself and go to Vancouver on like a player tryout contract. And then literally the day before I left for that, Chicago calls with an offer, like a guaranteed money offer. I'm like, call Van. I'm like, hey, I got an offer. If you can match it, that'd be sweet. Like, and I'll come to you for sure. Like, even if you go like less, like,
Yeah,
I,
but
I,
I'll come
I
anyway.
think I told them 10 grand less. I'll take 10 grand less. Just help me
For
get
the
out of there.
opportunity,
Can't
like
turn, yeah, I can't turn down guaranteed money at this point in my career. Like, but looking back, I wish I would have bet on myself and just taken the chance.
it's hard though, like you say, like that's your
Yeah,
job. That's your job, and there's a job right there.
yeah,
The
it's
contract's in your
tough.
hand, and you can sign it, and you know you've got X to get you through the next year.
Yeah,
Versus there could be
whether I
seven
play well
seven
in
other
a
fucking studs
2 week,
coming out of major junior
yeah,
that
2 week camp. Like I could go into a 2 week camp, pull my groin,
yeah.
practice for three, and be done. But so I left that year and then played really well that year. Ended up playing, beating out like Drew McIntyre for the starting job late in the playoffs, and then got called up to Black Ace, and then signed a bigger contract in Rock for the following year. That was probably like the best year was the previous year. I wish I would have tried to get out then as well.
So who are you having conversations with? Because I know Mark Bernard's involved
Yeah,
in the Blackhawks slash Rockford organization. He was coaching
yeah, it was Bernie.
when I
Yeah,
was
Bernie the
there.
whole time.
Is that the guy you're going for the conversations with?
Yeah. Mark Bernard. Yeah, he's actually super good to me. Obviously, he's like a pretty intense, fiery guy. So he would butt heads with guys every once in a while, and I'm sure him and I like butted heads a few times with either my off ice antics or whatever on ice antics as well. Um, and but me and Bernie always left on good terms. Like kind of same people would always come in the next day and talk it out. But then kind of a trash year for everybody, like everyone in the organization had a terrible year. Kind of the year like I got given a chance a little bit. I think career lows for everybody that year, including like our top end guys. And so next year, nothing came through. I think they could have kind of cleaned house and just try to move on from everybody. And then Providence was looking for a goalie just for like the first month of the year. So I'm like, all right, sign me up. It's fine. Did well. Providence kind of a cheaper organization in the NHL. They usually get their guys from Boston that are paid from Boston. So they
Yeah.
don't have to pay anybody, which is what a lot of teams in the AHL do. And goalie comes back up injury. I'm like, hey, I got some offers in Europe. Are you guys looking to sign me, or are you like, what do you guys think? Like, we were just gonna go month to month with you, man. To be honest with you, so if you have an opportunity, take it,
Go do
and
it.
we'll keep an eye on you for future. And I was like super appreciative of that. It was like kind of like the first time in my career I've had to like go up to a GM and ask that kind of question, like,
And get a straight shooter as well.
and get a straight shooter. And he's like, man, we're not going to offer you really much. Like it's going to be very, very low end. You're going to struggle to get by here. So take the offer overseas, like go enjoy yourself for the year, play well, and we'll keep tabs on you. Which whether they did or not, I don't know. Probably not. But it was very honest of them and I really appreciated it and ended up going to Hungary, Szekspélyvar, where Mark Byzantine ended his career actually because I came over. played well there, signed a big ticket out of there the following year to stay. And kind of just,
Yeah, 9.30, 2.56 goals against, like real good numbers.
yeah, so I had a great time there. Probably one of my favorite cities I've played in.
It's right in
And just,
Budapest, is it not?
yeah, it depends on who's driving, but like 30 minutes outside Budapest.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect to get in trouble on the weekends and stay out of trouble on
Yeah.
the weekdays. But no, I had a great time there, and the price of living there's no
So cheap.
joke. Like it's a good time. You can go out for meals, $4 a meal. I think
It's
I always
crazy.
tell everybody the last 3 months I was there, on my second year of the contract, I ate out every single meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, did not have a single thing. I think I spent maybe 20 euros a day. And the
Yeah, that's
contract I was
insane.
on, it just like wasn't an issue as far as I was concerned. I was
So financially, is it quite a good league in the Apple at that
I think
stage?
it depends on the team you're on. I don't think it's a salary cap league, as like the EI is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, all right.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Wink, wink, nudge,
It's,
nudge.
yeah, it's a
A
salary
guy's
cap league.
wife's making fucking $1,000 a week for cleaning
Yeah.
toilets that they've never
When
cleaned
it's
once.
convenient in the negotiations, it's a salary cap league. When it's not convenient, then it's not. But
Yeah,
um,
sums it up.
yeah, but had a great time there, and you know, good organization, especially now they got a new sponsor, Hydro, and they have a brand new building going in this year. It should be a pretty sweet spot to play. Um, but kind of like summed up a little bit, like just button heads with the national team guys on me coming from North America. I had a view of where professionalism should be,
Yeah.
and I held myself to that standard, so I wanted to hold everyone else to that standard, and I thought that's kind of how hockey worked because that's how North America runs things. And not argued my way out of the contract, but I think it was just time to move on, for both parties. We never won anything. We didn't really have a chance of winning.
Didn't threaten winning or anything, just like
No, just
mediocre season kind of thing.
yeah, and they were happy just to make playoffs at that point, and I wasn't that kind of guy. I wanted a team to call me and be like, "Hey, we want to win a championship. Here's what we can offer." I'm like, "Okay, done." And that's what got me to Cardiff. And in the long run, was they called and said, "Hey, we want to win a championship." And at that point, I hadn't had a team call me and say that yet, so I was signed up, ready to go at the end of that conversation, pretty much.
So when you were in the Dell 2, I'm looking your first year there. There's one for the British fans. Not only do you have Mikey Hammond, Darcy Murphy, Belfast fans will know him. You had Robert Farmer there as well, a British boy. There's quite a few lads. How did Farms get on out in Germany? Because he went out, his numbers were good. He scores the fucking fantastic goal to get us promoted. Just comes home, fucking retires, and no one's ever heard from him ever since.
Yeah, I think Farms. It was tough not having his family there.
Yeah.
That I think the first year his family came out and they were there the whole time. Second year, I think he had like a option, like they had an option before Christmas to sign him for that year and extend him another year. And he was playing super well. And I
Yeah,
think
six points in 6 games.
yeah, I think just not having his family there, and then COVID being a thing that year as well, I think was tough. And I think he was just, kind of wanted to be closer to home, with Lucy and the boys there. So I think that had a lot to do
Understandable,
with it.
right?
Yeah, no, and I similar to what Pete Russell's got going on.
Yeah.
Um, don't blame a guy for making a family decision at all.
No.
But yeah, Darcy and Hammy and those guys, they were good. I think me and Darcy's a little fiery kid too, and we got into it a few times. And Corey was our coach, and never forget we got called in after kind of going after each other on practice, and we were both imports, obviously, like higher end paid guys. And Corey brings us in, and sorry, Corey, was in your office. I know what goes in the room stays in the room,
Yeah,
but Corey's a good guy. I love that guy to death. And so he brings us in, like we were just going at it in practice, like a mini drill where Darcy probably fell into me because he toe picks all the time and just runs into just a bull in a china shop. And then I gave him one back and he gave me one back, and I kind of took advantage of him a little bit, but bring into Corey's office, and he goes, Mac, I can't have you beating up our top forward. I think he scored like 50 goals that year or something crazy like that. Just a pure goal scorer, right? And keeps looking at me, he goes, with Darcy in the room, he goes, Mac, it'd be like if I like beat up a 10-year-old girl, you beating up Darcy. Like, it's a subtle chirp to Darcy there, but I was like, oh gosh, like, yeah, okay, fine. Like we're good. Don't worry about it. When I had a pint and at the local pub there, and we were fine. But playing for Corey is an absolute roller coaster of a time.
Yeah, how's that? That's an emotional fucking human being right there.
Oh, his comments are so fun. Like, I love it. Like, he'll say stuff to me that's, some people would see as offsides, but obviously it's him and I, and we know each other well enough now where we can like kind of say whatever we want. And it's funny to have a head coach try and get under your skin during practice as a starting goalie.
Yeah.
It's, no, I enjoyed it a lot, and I would play for him again too if it ever worked out. But
well, we had Matt Halbert on, and he said like Corey was fucking bag skating him at GB. Like they're playing in the world champs, and he's like, right, get on the fucking blue line, guy.
Oh, I've never had a longer practice than playing for that guy. 2-hour practices every time.
Oh.
And it wasn't like we were at the board for 15 minutes. It was each drill is probably 15 minutes, and most of them are like skating flow drills for the players.
But nice.
And like he knows, he's a smart enough hockey player. He knows like which line like to go to if you're tired. He's like, before he even starts drill, he goes, if I see the same guys in this line every time, we're blowing it down, we're just bag skating. So like all the older guys usually want to go to like the soft line where you're just doing a quick turn and a pass.
Yeah, you just like
I see the same guys in this line hiding. We're bagging. I'm like, oh boys, please. Like I'm just in the crease here. So let's
like don't throw me under the bus here.
Yeah, let's just but playing for that guy was a good time.
What about Germany and the Dell 2 as a whole? Obviously, we had Joey Lewis on recently. He's been in the Dell 2 for a long time, British boy. He explained like the doing development, and then obviously you've touched on there the fact that they're 4 imports and then it's 9 in the league above it. There's a pathway, a clear pathway. How did you get on with the Germans? What do you think of the standard of the boys? Obviously, the top Germans are going to play in that top league, but from what I can gather, there's some fucking good German hockey players in that Dell 2.
Yeah, there's always like those bubble players, like the young talented Germans that could be in the Dell 2, and obviously there's bubble players on the. Like we touched on it a bit, the fact that Mosey's not a Brit in the league. And they have, once you get a passport in Germany, that's why I went to Weisswasser. I was told we could get a German pass and laugh my way to the bank for the rest of my career. But
yeah,
once you get a pass, then you're no longer an import. So those are also another like bubble player. Like, could they be in the Dell? Probably, but are they getting paid more in the Dell 2? For sure.
Yeah,
those guys are making 60 to 70 to try and promote to the Dell, and they'll go back to the Dell 2 in a couple of years and do the same thing.
Yeah,
like, oh, you promoted with this team. All right, we'll take you on the Dell 2. We'll pay you way more than you're worth just to promote. And then once you promote, you're on the Dell for a year. Go back, do it again. So like, there's guys that are like that are in the Dell 2 that have no business being there either.
Yeah, too good for the league.
Yeah. So as far as that goes, I think it's like. But it's also good for those young guys to see that type of player. Like, your first 2 lines in the Dell 2 are probably on par with, maybe the second and third line in the Dell, maybe third, fourth, depending on. But after that, it's a bit of a drop off, but it's a bit of a drop off for every team, right? So your third line's playing, they're still playing 15 minutes a night. Your fourth line's still playing 8 minutes a night. And those are young kids that probably wouldn't play if it was a 9.
Getting those opportunities, right?
Maybe in a lower league, exactly. So I think as far as that goes, and even those kids are skilled, right? Maybe their defensive game's not great, but they're skilled. Like every young kid nowadays that plays hockey they've
all got dangles.
Yeah, they're like sick hands. Whether they can think the game is a little different, but the only way you can think the game better is by playing and getting opportunities in a game. So I think Germany does it right there as far as the developmental league, and the Dell 2 is competitive because they pay imports and they pay these quote unquote passport players the money to be there, to make their league better, to make their players better. So I think getting rid of that UK passport thing is so huge. Like Stewie, Mosey, Pearls, like those guys all need to be Brits. Like it shouldn't matter where you played your youth if your parents or if your grandparents were born. Like that's where every other league operates.
Yeah.
If you have a passport, you're no longer an import.
Mate, you're preaching.
It's
you're
wild.
preaching to the
It's just
choir.
crazy. You have these guys in your national team bringing you to a national level, national championship at the division, whatever B.
Top, yeah, the one.
Now they're in the
Division
top
1A, and now they're in the World Championship.
Now they're in the World Championships again. So like you have non-Brits doing that just fine, but for some reason,
but they all have passports, and
yeah.
I
don't know. For some reason, the Elite League they don't want to help those guys out, but
I don't know. We could get into the whole EIHA Elite League, Ice Hockey UK.
But I think that's it. Like we talked about before, that's another way to get the youth going a little bit too. But who are we? We're just a bunch of dummies on a podcast.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's talk about what the fans have been waiting for. Let's roll into Cardiff. Obviously, you get the call.
Yeah.
They tell you they want to win a championship. You've had a couple of like the dry spells there and no trophies. How big of like a fucking motivation was that when you hear that? Like we're looking to win. We're not just looking to qualify for playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean it was a bit of a different. Like obviously, we had a few. I think we had none of our imports had played in the league before. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't think any of the imports in Cardiff the year I was there had played in the league. So to win the league is, I think, with players that don't know that every game is a playoff game. Like obviously we're told that, but you don't really know it until you've played a year in the league. Like, all right, the Tuesday in Fife is actually a big deal.
Yeah.
Or the 3:00 game against Dundee is
must win.
It's a must win. And I think you could probably go back through the year. I was in Cardiff and we lost a lot of those. I wouldn't want to call them layup games because those teams
lesser games, not non-arena teams, basically.
Yeah. Those teams are still good, but you 9 out of 10 times should beat them. And I think we were like 2 out of 4 with some of the teams, if not less, with Dundee maybe. But so that was tough. Kind of wrapping your head around that as an import. And then obviously, I'm sure everyone wants to hear about the end of it, but we'll keep it kind of PG is what I said before, but just kind of saw the writing on the wall and wasn't really fitting in with the staff, like maybe in the front office as well as I thought I was. And then with the coach as well.
Performances on the ice though, you were second team all-star. You your best save percentage in the league. So on the ice, things are going well. Is it
on the ice? Things are going well. Like in the locker room, for the most part, things were going well too. Like I had a big team meeting with guys where I was told to apologize for some comments that I made after I got pulled and a lot of guys came up to me and were like, "Hey, like we have zero issue with you. Like you're one of the better guys in the room here, and I don't know where this is coming from, but it's not coming from us, so don't worry about it." And that was like kind of a big like boost for me. Like obviously it wasn't coming from the boys, it was coming from somewhere else. And so that was a big boost for me, like going into playoffs and like, all right, I'm just gonna win it and shove it up whoever's hoop is trying to badmouth my career, my character, I guess is where I was going with it. Like it was a pretty tough time, like mentally. Like I hired like a psychologist for a bit just to kind of deal with some
interesting. How did that help? Did you find that like very helpful?
Yeah, I was like a sports psychologist. It was good. It was like breathing and the normal stuff you hear guys talk about.
Yeah.
But and then obviously I think towards the end of the year, like that frustration went away with the decision they made before playoffs, and I think the weight of the world is a bit off my shoulders going into the playoff rounds.
Just play hockey.
Just play hockey, and the distraction for me in the front office wasn't there anymore, because it was just kind of a walking on eggshells type of feeling for some of it.
And then once you know you're not going back, it doesn't really fucking matter. You just want to finish the best you can, right?
Yeah, and then I hadn't signed anywhere. Obviously they announced it a bit early, and since I've been there, they've apologized multiple times for doing that, and obviously the
It
fans.
was weird,
Yeah, super weird.
really weird.
Um,
Like I remember we talked about it on the podcast at the time, and it was like, huh?
yeah, it was
Like was
super
it like
strange.
2 weeks before playoffs or 4 weeks
Yeah, and
before
I
playoffs
think
or
I woke
something?
up from a nap and got a bunch of text messages from Todd, obviously who's obviously a passionate person. And we've since, shook hands and,
Buried hatchet.
guy on most things. Um, where I'm sure he's not happy with how he handled some things, and I'm definitely not happy with how I handled some things going both ways.
Yeah,
But that's business sometimes.
yeah, shit happens sometimes, right?
But yeah, the announcement was a bit strange, and I think it was like the day of a game too.
Yeah, it's just weird.
And I always get to the rink before everyone else. Not by like I want to be there before everyone else. So just I go 3 hours, everyone else usually goes two. And DuPont was there, and I got this long text messages from the staff. And when DuPont's like, "Am I playing today or what's going on?" He goes, and DuPont, like as a rookie coach, like I think handled it pretty well. Um, Luckily he had played in the organization, so he kind of knew how maybe not hockey IQ smart the front office was in Herning. At the time, they're better now. But I think they were just looking to announce it for their fans to kind of they had a tough year and a tough out in playoffs, so they were looking to get their fan base
Announced the
going.
big piece.
Yeah, that's what Brody said to me. I'm like, all right, like obviously you're there, but he goes, Mac, like even in practice, you don't want to get scored on. Even
You're gonna be fine.
Sunday TV where everyone's hungover, you're going to the splits, trying to stop everything. Like, I know that you're not gonna just give up or just pack it in. Like, you're a guy. We're going with you the rest of the way. So just whoever texted you, whoever did this, just play. We'll deal with it after the season. And so that's how we went about it the rest of the way. When Brody took over, which is a huge relief to me, was Brody taking over, and I think he did pretty well. Obviously, this year was a bit of a letdown, I guess, in the organization standpoint. Like obviously, I mean, they got one of the best coaches in Europe to come in. So I don't know if it
Yeah,
was Brody or if it was that coming in, but um, I liked him as a coach for the very few weeks I had him. So I'm not sure how a full season would have gone, but
I spoke to Franny a couple of times throughout the year, and he was mega impressed with like the way he sat up and his attention to detail. And he was at the rink fucking 2 hours early watching video, and he was leaving an hour late watching more video. And apparently, like he was a real deal this year. But when Pete Russell comes on the market and he wants to come home, and his home's 40 minutes away from your rink, and you don't sign him, you're a fucking lunatic.
yeah, yeah. And I think Brody will land on his feet. They got a good family there, and they'll figure it out for sure wherever he does end up. But yeah, Pete Russell's I played against him in the Dell 2, and he's he's on par with I think Keith there in Belfast. I know Keith hasn't left the league, but I think he could if he wanted to,
Oh
if we're
yeah,
being honest.
that's
But
that's the rumor every summer.
yeah,
Adam Keefe to whoever, but they're going to build a statue of that guy in Belfast, so he doesn't really
they
need to. He
if they
doesn't
don't
really
have
need to
one
run out
already,
of
they
town.
should. Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't
yeah.
need to
But
run out of town anywhere anytime soon. He's right up there with Paxton Shortley and all the fucking big old boys from back in the early Elite League days, the legends.
yeah,
Adam Keefe's right there with that organization is in like legend status.
yeah. No, he's a hell of a coach and was a hell of a player too, from what I've seen. So as far as toughness goes, and um, but yeah, that was my time in Cardiff. Like obviously we went out on a high, and um, I mean, looking back, I don't really regret leaving. It worked out for my family pretty well. Like I found a great match character wise in Denmark. Do I wish it was in Cardiff when we were there? Sure, if it worked out. Character wise, I think but I think with the organization in Denmark, we have the same goals. Um, they're looking to build a culture, and I think they like the way I'm pretty blunt, and they ask me questions, and I'll tell them, kind of
Just all business, eh?
without beating around the bush. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I think, and sometimes it comes out in a good way, sometimes it comes out in a few f bombs here or there, but I think they appreciate the opinion, and I think that's more or less the Danish culture too. Is they'd rather have you, you know, tell it to their face than keep it buried deep inside and,
or bitching to the boys on a fucking
Yeah.
Tuesday morning practice. You're like,
yeah, the rumors,
yeah,
like
it's
the
worse
rumor
because it
mill.
brings the level of the skate down right straight away.
Yeah, I think they'd rather, get it dealt with right away. And that's what we have in our room right now. Like our captain, Morton, he's on the national team and he's a no messing around type of guy. He's probably one of the toughest guys I've played with. And, with him, myself, and obviously some other high end Danes are kind of round the leadership group up. It's a pretty easy locker room just to kind of put your head down and go to work every day. Like obviously we mess around. We have some good young players that are good at making us older guys smile and want to come to the rink and hear the stories from the weekend. But
I love that there's still story time. That's one thing.
Oh
that's
yeah,
disappeared, man. Like
that's what I try to get the young guys going now that I'm married. It's like, hey boys, like what's going on? Like I didn't go in town this weekend. Like what's the news? What's the news? So get the business from the boys a little bit.
Living vicariously through like the 18 to 24-year-old lads.
Yeah,
in the locker
exactly.
room, right?
They always have some good stories, but it's usually them like fighting each other in their backyard at like
backyard brawls with the fucking
yeah,
teammates.
Exactly.
Being part of one or two of them. Let's keep it current with podcast Kev. You mentioned him a couple of times. If you haven't already, and you love this episode, you're going to love Kev Tansy's episode, Just Joining Sheffield Steelers. Go check that out. You got to play with him and Mr. Brett Bellini. That's where he ended up. Obviously, we asked Kev. He's now, Brett's gone to the Oberliga. Even can't remember if he's just had the baby or he's having the baby. What was it like getting to play with these boys for the entire season? Because they're both a couple of good dudes, right?
Oh, great guys. Yeah, Pearls is a bit more of a quiet guy than Kevin. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast, he's a good talker, a lot better at communicating than I am.
No, you smashed it, man.
College educated is a college educated.
Yeah, right. Guys with at least 4-year degrees.
Yeah, always helps. No, Kevin's a good guy. He's a good vocal leader in the room. And a good like playoff guy, like really good playoff player for us. I think he had a good year and then was kind of on and off the power play a bit, which I know is frustrating for those offensive defenseman guys. That's kind of where they get their points. And then playoffs came and it was just a different animal, right? He blocked shots and battling through injuries and things like that. And that's kind of what you want to see out of a solid import defenseman in playoffs, like 7-game series playoffs, not like the EI playoffs. But
took the next question right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
How do you feel being back in a league with a proper playoff series? I keep beating the drum on this pretty much every episode. Guys and girls that you're watching along, I'm fucking sorry. But until they change it, I'm not going to change the record. Like, I'm not.
No, it's as a player, like, it was interesting. Like I've been in some in Hungary, we've lost in Red Bull, but majority of my playoff experience is in Portland, where we went the distance most of the time and came up short a few and finally got one. And then lost to a guy named Nathan McKinnon in the Memorial Cup. But yeah. But so it was interesting just after the EI experience was coming in and playing a 7-game series and seeing the little tweaks and things that teams make game to game. It becomes much more of a chess game than just playing that weekend tournament. But because they do another one of those, we won it.
The cup, right?
Yeah, the Pokal Cup, or I think that's what they call it. But we did win that. So that was similar to the playoffs.
He said he didn't even know what was going on, and everyone was like on the fucking ice celebrating. He's like,
yeah, it was.
This is quite a big deal,
because no one had said anything. Obviously, it's the last game of the season. Yeah, so like, doesn't matter how you celebrate because you're probably not playing again until next August.
Yeah, you got a few months off.
Punting helmets and doing whatever is just whatever. And I was out of the league. I was just like,
free for all.
Weight off my shoulders. I'm good to go. But the Pokal Cup, I wasn't sure. Like, no one really said anything about how big of a deal it was. I'm sure the Danes knew how big it was for the organization. They hadn't won anything in 10 years or something like that. But us imports, kind of coming into it, same kind of thing, like imports in the EI, not knowing that regular season is a big deal. Sitting in goal, and we won 4-1 or 4-2 or something like that, like a late goal by them. I'm sitting in goal, and all the boys are skating off the bench, and they all have their helmets on. I'm like, okay, fine, like perfect. First guy gets to me, ejects his helmet and gloves at the hash marks. So I'm like not prepared. I have no time to get rid of anything.
Zero time.
So everyone yard sales their stuff, and I'm like trying to get my gloves off.
Got your
I'm like,
blocker stuck. Mate.
yeah, I'm in my little like fat suit and just like everything that just kind of like limps off me as everyone hugs me. I'm like, oh, that was not a good look. But celebration was good. Like I think the Danish league does it right. They bring in like a movable bar and bring it into the locker room. So you're just
amazing.
boozing in the locker room
with party with the boys without too much interference, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then like the families outside the locker room, like in the lobby area. So like some guys are going in and out, but for like if you wanted to stay in, you stayed in. And then like all the sponsors and all the big brass come in and say their little thing or whatever. But yeah, it was a good time. And then I think that's on a Saturday. We end up winning. We have a game Tuesday. So we go out Saturday, we drive back to Herning, go out pretty much until 6 a.m. Sunday morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Practice Monday's a 30-minute sweat it out. Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
See you Tuesday on the bus. And most guys are still hungover. Playing Tuesday, I'm like, it's just I guess it was kind of like Belfast this year when they won the league and then
lost to Dundee like 9-1 or something.
Yeah, something crazy like that, like rock paper scissors.
Dundee were like 11-1 to win that game, and I was like, do I put a bet on it? And I text Kieran Long, and he's like, even drunk will beat them. So I'm like, fucking nah, I didn't put a bet on. And then I just text him a screenshot after like the game. He's like, "What do you want from me? I've been drinking for 2 days."
Yeah, of course they got the confidence going too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a little weird on that side of thing, but it's a lot different than the so like a regular season game. We're already in playoffs. It's not a huge deal. But I think we won 2-1, just an absolute blistering of a game. Like bad team versus drunk team wasn't good.
Yeah, just.
I would feel bad.
You weren't paying to watch.
Yeah, whoever paid their €4 a ticket there was struggling. But
what is it? How much a game?
Like €4, I think you can pay. Yeah.
Wow.
It's nothing crazy. Yeah, nothing compared to the.
Wow, the Elite League right now is. I think you're looking like minimum £20 a ticket, so like 20. The euros, the pound's good right now. I think it's like 119. So you're talking, you can watch the game over there for about £2.90, and vice versa. This way, you're looking at like €32 a game to watch the Elite League.
Yeah, I think like they have to battle with like Michelin as the European League team here in Herning, and they're $4 a ticket. So you can't like go from like professionalism of football, like they're a high end football team, and then come to a Danish hockey league game and you're charging more. I don't think it would work, but so that's their thing. It's all
they're governed by the local football team, which
maybe not governed, but like
no, but I know what you mean. Like
you gotta compete, right? Yeah, you need people in the building. So there's that. Like, and then but going back to the playoffs, like it was so much fun. Like it's a absolute stress fest. Like during, but. I was talking on Wally's podcast, like 2 Ales and Hockey Tales, like
what beauty
for it. And like he was saying, like, yeah, you can tell like when you beat a team, like it might be game 3, it might be game 4, it might be game 7. Like you can tell the minute you have a team beat and it's over. Whereas like in little tournaments, you don't. And then vice versa, you can look around the room and sometimes you can tell which guys are checked out, especially in European hockey where you have like imports that are I'm out of all my bonuses. Like what are we still doing here? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Want to go home and that's super frustrating. Like
for a lot of guys, it is a job.
Yeah, that's
like
super.
How many guys do you know that go into the office and just fuck the dog for a week?
Yeah,
and now they got a chance to make a sale. Boom, here they are. Here these guys, they come alive and they're like, yeah, and they're wheeling and they're dealing.